Are you someone who struggles with being a people pleaser? Oftentimes, I find that those people who struggle with this people pleasing mindset, they're constantly exhausted, they lack purpose and vision for their life sometime, and they have the inability to say no. They say yes to absolutely everything. If this is a mindset that you can identify with today, well, then you're in the right place. Because here on the show today, we're going to discuss what a people pleasing mindset actually is. We're going to review strategies on how to overcome this limiting mindset. And lastly, I'm going to show you how this people-pleasing mindset can truly limit you from achieving the best life that God has for you. If you're new here, welcome to the show. And if you're returning, welcome back. My name is Kaytlynn Ward, and I just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel because here on the Kaytlynn Ward Show, my desire is that you leave every single episode fueled up with passion, purpose, and practical tools that get you into the right mindset to achieve the best life that God has for you. Let's get right into today's topic. What is a people-pleasing mindset? Well, if you look up on Google what a people pleaser is, you get this definition. A people pleaser is someone who has the emotional need to please others, often at the expense of their own needs and desires. They prioritize the happiness and approval of others, sometimes to their own detriment. And lastly, they constantly say yes to everything, and they oftentimes struggle to assert their own needs or boundaries. Is this a mindset you struggle with? Well, let me give you a few symptoms to help you identify whether or not this is a mindset that you struggle with. So, do you constantly feel exhausted because you put everyone else's needs above your own? If so, you might be struggling with this people-pleasing mindset. Do you lack purpose and vision for your life because you're too busy building someone else's dreaming and making sure everyone else is invested without investing in yourself? If so, you might be struggling with this people-pleasing mindset. And lastly, do you constantly say yes to everything? Can you never say no to going out on the weekend when you really wanted to rest, or you just really can't say no to an invitation to go out, or you can't say no to giving someone a ride? If you can't say no and you say yes to everything, then you might be struggling with this people-pleasing mindset. This people-pleasing mindset is very limiting to us, and it's something that we must overcome in order to really live our best life. Have you seen those medicine commercials that are like, take medicine ABC to get these results, and then really fast you have this underlying voice that starts saying off all these terrible symptoms, like symptoms may include heart failure, brittle bones, constantly passing out, going blind, whatever it is. But they played these beautiful meadows and families playing together in the backyard and someone surfing with the sunrise, but they do that while underlying these negative symptoms. And, if there was a people pleaser commercial, this is kind of how I feel like it would go. Take people pleaser today. This medicine promises you to be liked by everyone, always being someone's go-to person for every single problem, and the ability to say yes to absolutely everything. And then really fast, the commercial starts playing these beautiful B-roll footage and then underlies with saying side effects may include lack of purpose, no clarity on what you want in your life because you're too busy building someone else's dream, constantly exhausted because you're always there for everyone but yourself, and lastly, the inability to say no because your painstaking desire to be liked. If you saw this commercial, would you want to take this people pleaser medicine? No, because the side effects are terrible. But the enemy portrays a people-pleasing mindset in such a beautiful way of, if you take people pleaser, then you're going to be liked by everyone and you always can say yes to everything, and you are everyone's go-to person for every single problem. The enemy causes you to operate in this people-pleasing mindset because he presents it in a way that's pretty, but the side effects are detrimental to you because the side effects, you lack purpose. You have no clarity on what you want because you make sure everyone else is taken care of. You can't say no because you just have a painstaking desire to be liked, to be approved, to be wanted. Whatever this mindset is, this people-pleasing mindset, whatever facet that you struggle with, I want to show you how you can overcome, because when we overcome this mindset, you really experience a new sense of freedom in your life. Because trust me, I used to struggle with this people-pleasing mindset all the time, but it wasn't until I discovered these strategies that I started seeing a difference in my life. And so in order to not operate in this mindset, you have to, number one, our first solution to a people pleaser mindset is recognize that it's not selfish to make sure your needs are met. I know that might be really, really hard for you to hear, but just as much as you feel like the people that you support, that need a friend, that need rest, need to invest in themselves, you need that just the same. And to run yourself ragged in this people-pleasing mindset because you want to make sure everyone else is taken care of because you just have a desire for people to see you as their go-to person, you want to be liked, you want to be recognized, well, it can give you a sense of false humility because if you operate in this people-pleasing mindset, then sometimes you can feel like you're more important than others because you're always there to serve, you're always giving your time, you're always giving your whatever it is because you're like, I'm there to make people's life easier. But if you continue in this mindset, and if you're not careful by operating in this heart posture and mindset of this people-pleasing in your everyday life, you can end up harboring feelings of disdain and irritation towards those people that you're doing everything for them because you're doing everything for them and it seems like it goes unnoticed. But if you never prioritize your own needs, then those around you, they may not think that, hey, if she's always there for us, then she might be she's always taking care of herself or taking care of himself. And sometimes people didn't even ask for your help. And so it's good to be there for other people. But if you constantly are there and just making sure everyone else is taken care of and you have this people-pleasing mindset of like, I just want to make sure people are taken care of and it doesn't matter what I think and, I'm going to give all my time, I'm going to give everything, then you can feel constantly exhausted and you can start harboring feelings of resentment towards people because you're like, they don't notice, they don't do, whatever. Well, have you made your feelings known? Have you made your needs known? Have you put up boundaries for you to say no to things? Think about it. So how do we not feel guilty about making sure that our needs are met? Because, it's okay to have a servant's heart. It's okay to help people out. But when you're doing it at the own detriment of making sure everyone else is taken care of because you want to be liked, you want to be needed, you want to be wanted, then you might need to change the way that you operate. But the way that we don't feel guilty about making sure our needs are met is, let me give you two things. Number one, focus on reciprocity in your relationships. Make sure that there's balance in your relationships because relationships are give and take, give and take. And if you're constantly give, and there's never a return in that, you might want to get some new friends. So when you are operating in this people-pleasing mindset, you might just think, oh yeah, like all my relationships are great. Like they like me, all this kind of stuff. And it might just be because you're doing everything for them. But if you never analyze your relationships and become self-aware to the relationships you have, then you could be in a constant state of give. And that's why you're so exhausted because you're never receiving anything in return. Just something to think about. And lastly, for this little section is be mindful of overgiving. Avoid sacrificing your own needs to the point of exhaustion and resentment. Make sure that you get enough rest. Make sure that your needs are met. Make sure that you're taken care of and you're investing in yourself because when you neglect that, then you feel like, oh, I'm just doing everything else for everyone else and I'm not ever doing anything for me. So then you just start harboring feelings of resentment. This can simply start by, for every one thing you do for someone else, you do the same thing in return for yourself. And when you start doing this, if you're serious about it, then you realize, oh my gosh, I have been doing so much give, and I haven't ever been filling myself back up. And so a way that you can make sure that you don't feel selfish about making sure your own needs are met is that just for every one thing you do for someone else, do the same thing for yourself in return, because then you'll start realizing how much you've actually been doing for everyone else compared to how much you've actually been doing for yourself. So that's the first thing. It's not selfish to make sure your own needs are met. And then number two, a way to overcome this limiting mindset of being a people pleaser is that you need to learn to say no. I know this is going to be really, really hard for some of you, but I can help you with this because I used to struggle with this all the time because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I wanted to make sure that everyone else, but I ran myself ragged and I didn't really care about my own feelings because I just was like, I'm going to say yes to everything. But how do you practice saying no when you've never really been good at it? Well, this is going to sound so silly, but just start saying it in front of a mirror. One of the things that I started doing when I started to say no to going out or say no to maybe going on a trip or whatever it was I started by practicing scenarios in my car, in front of my mirror, while making my bed, because I got the reps in of saying no. So when the opportunity presented itself and someone asked me, hey, let's go do this, and I already planned on doing something else, then I was like, no. And then once you do it, it's a muscle. You eventually get better at doing it. And again, don't feel guilty about doing that. Don't feel guilty about saying no. You don't have to feel guilty for saying no to going out on Friday night when you already plan to invest in your startup on the weekend. You don't have to feel guilty about saying no to a weekend getaway when you already planned on using that finances to pay off part of your student loan that you've been working on paying that off. It's not guilty to say no when you've already had something going on. It's not guilty to say no when you need the rest. And then lastly, set aside time to invest in yourself. A way to get out of this people-pleasing mindset is that you got to stop operating in that constantly needing to invest in everyone else by balancing it with investing time in ourselves. It's amazing to invest in other people. It's amazing to invest your time in volunteer work and everything else. But if you struggle with this mindset of people-pleasing, you just got to set aside time to invest in yourself. Because if you're neglecting your own needs, neglecting your own desires, then you can constantly feel like you're kind of aimless. But you can start by overcoming this people-pleasing mindset. Like I said earlier, it's making sure your needs are met, not feeling guilty about it, and then learning to say no, and then investing time in yourself. Invest time in yourself, because just as much as the people that you invest in are worth the investment, you are worth that same investment. You are worth that same investment. And remember, it's not selfish. You're worth investing time in, you're worth investing resources, energy, just as much as everyone else you give your time to. And if you don't think so, then I encourage you to take additional steps to increase your self-esteem, to increase your mindset that you are worth the investment, and you're not just someone's errand girl or errand boy. And disclaimer, when you start doing this, when you start overcoming this people-pleasing mindset, there may be people that think that you're rude, there may be people that think that you're selfish, because you're no longer at their beck and call. And that goes back again to making sure there's reciprocity in your relationships. If there's constantly give, and then you start taking a step back and making sure you're taken care of, if a friendship isn't real, then they're going to make you think, why are you selfish? Why are you saying no? You're being a party pooper. You're doing this. And that's not a true friend. But a true friend, when you start making sure your needs are met, they're going to help you put those boundaries up. They're going to help respect you whenever you do say no. And trust me, I have some amazing friends that there's been times, like both of us have done this to each other, where we already planned to go out on the weekend, and then the weekend came and we had a really long week at work, and then she texted me and was like, hey, can we please reschedule? Like, I just really, like, I can't go out tonight. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? Because you got to make sure you do what's best for you. And then lastly, be careful moving forward in relationships that cause you to feel like you're being rude or selfish when you actually do start saying no, when you actually do start investing in yourself, when you actually do start making sure your needs are met. Because honestly, sometimes if people don't actually see that you are working on detoxing this mindset out of your life, then they might have just been your friend because you did everything for them. It's something to consider when you're going forward in relationships. So a way to get over this mindset, this people-pleasing mindset, making sure that you know that it's not selfish to meet your own needs, and then learning to say no, and then set aside time to invest in yourself. And before we close today's episode, I want to give you some bonus content on this people-pleasing mindset and how it relates to your dreams. I said that the side effect of the people-pleasing mindset is that you lack purpose and vision for your life. And it's true. But why is that? The reason you lack the vision and the purpose for your life, if you operate in this mindset, is because you're trying to fit into the mold of other people's expectations and plans for your life. And you end up wandering passionless, aimless, because you're living out a human's plan for your life and not God's plan for your life. You end up being just aimlessly going away. Because like if right here is where God's best plan for you, a life of fulfilled destiny is, you end up wandering aimless away from it because you're constantly trying to fit in the mold of a human plan for your life, of man's plan for your life over God's plan for your life, because you want to be respected by men, you want to be respected by them. And so you're like, you know what? If I do exactly how they did, then I want to please them. I want to make sure I'm doing everything how they want me to do. Could be you're growing up and everyone in your family's a doctor, but you want to be an engineer, and you go ahead and be a doctor because you're like, oh, I'm going to please my family. I'm going to do this. But when you look at that, that is pleasing man's opinion. That is pleasing their opinion of you over what God called you to do, which was probably an engineer. So you need to recognize the reason behind your lack of vision and purpose. You need to make yourself aware of, am I following God's plan for my life? Or am I following man's for my life because I want to be accepted, I want to be approved of? Why do we do this? Why do we fear the wrong things? What do I mean by that? Well, when I say that we fear the wrong things, I say that we're fearing man instead of fearing God. But fear in this context, when you think about the fear of man, when you think about the fear of God, what does that mean? Well, it means respect. In this context, it can be respect of man or respect of God. You respect man's plan for your life better than God's plan for your life, because sometimes what God calls you to do is always going to take faith, and it might seem foolish to go after this plan when over here everyone else says that if you just follow man's plan, then it's going to make you look good. But God says, I have a plan for you. And so in the Bible, the fear of God generally refers to a deep reverence and awe, a respect for God, rather than a feeling of terror. And it encompasses a recognition of God's power, His holiness, His authority, and it is a desire. This fear of God leads us to a desire to obey God. But if we reverse this definition and say the fear of man, then it can be defined as the fear of man generally refers to a deep reverence and awe, a respect for man rather than a feeling of terror, and it encompasses a recognition of man's power, of man's authority, leading for a desire to obey and please man. So by having the fear of man dominate your mind over the fear of God, you end up respecting what people think of you over what God thinks of you. Which one would you rather have? God's respect or man's respect? I choose God's respect any day. And this in turn causes you, when you respect man's and you fear man and their opinion of you, then it causes you to pursue man's fear out of man's plan for your life, for fear of being disapproved of, fear of being laughed at, and this all roots itself in a people-pleasing mindset, because you would rather please man's expectations and their approval over you over God's expectations for you. If you're a born-again believer, when you die, you're going to answer to what God called you to do, not what man expected you to do. So choose wisely. John Bevere once gave this beautiful definition of what the fear of God is. And the fear of God is defined as the person is terrified of being away from God. The healthy and holy fear of God is being scared. We're so afraid and terrified of being away from Him. And the fear of God is standing in awe of who He is. The holy fear of God grows when we understand and comprehend God's greatness, and we dumb down God's greatness the less that we fear Him. If you reverse that and give this definition of the fear of man, it could be said like this. The fear of man. The person is terrified of being away from man. The unhealthy, unholy fear of man is scared. We're so afraid of being terrified and being away from man. So what is the fear of man? It's when we stand in awe of man. Our unholy fear of man grows when we understand man's greatness and we exalt man's greatness, and we dumb down man's greatness the less that we fear them. This perspective of fear of man exalts their ability above God's ability. When we operate in this fear of man through the mindset of people-pleasing, we end up forgetting God's plan for our lives because we look through man's ability rather than through God's ability. And when you give this mindset and this rule over your life, then you're going to do something, a plan that is subpar to the plan that is to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future, as God talks about in Jeremiah 29:11. So I ask you today, what are the plans you're pursuing in your life? Are they plans to please your parents, to please your company, to please your boss, to please your church, or are they plans to please God? Ask yourself that. What are they? You may think that the plan that God has for you may bring disapproval to your family, and it might. You may think that the plan that God has called you to pursue seems foolish in the eyes of man, and it most definitely could be, because the God plan for your life takes faith. But let me ask you this. Would you rather have God tell you, well done, my good and faithful servant? Or would you rather see that all that God had planned for you that you never got to achieve because you pursued man's dream? As we close today's show, let me ask you, is your life pleasing to God or pleasing to man? Are you being a people pleaser and constantly making sure everyone else is taken care of? Constantly being at everyone's beck and call? You're never making sure your own needs are met? Or are you setting up boundaries? Are you making sure that you do say no so that you can get the rest on the weekends? A people-pleasing mindset is something that limits you in so many ways. It can even limit you from achieving the dream that God has given you in your life. So if this mindset is something that you struggle with, I challenge you for the next 7 days to take those 3 action steps to overcome this mindset by learning it's not selfish to take care of your own needs and make sure they're met, learning to say no, and set aside time to invest in yourself. My final piece of advice that I leave with you today is that you remember that you're worth every single investment just as much as the investment you provide and give to other people. I hope this topic was insightful. I hope this topic was helpful today. And I hope this topic enlightened you and made you more self-aware to see if this is something that you struggle with or if this is something that you can help a friend of yours who struggles with this mindset. If you've thought about someone while watching this episode, share this episode with them today, because my desire is that you live the best life that God has for you and that you overcome the limiting mindsets that are holding you back from achieving the best life that you have. And that can all start by getting rid of this people-pleaser mindset. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, hit like, comment, share this with someone you know, and I will see you again next Friday.